Hello to you. This is the first post-festive period video that I'm recording, and it's an important one. It's a topic that I have a real bee in my bonnet about, and the little note that I had written myself as a reminder of the topic was, it's a vocation, not a job. Okay, let me give you a little bit of background, because your understanding of my stance on this will depend on what you know about me and my circumstances. So, obviously, I come from a medical background, so I've worked as a doctor for 15 years, the majority of which was in the NHS until recently. My other half is in the police. My brother is a teacher. I've obviously come into contact with a lot of people that work in public services over the years and have a lot of connections in the public services. Okay, and it's a notorious quote unquote battleground over the years for strikes and things. So I was. Well, I was still technically a junior doctor, although I was quite far through my training program when the junior doctor strikes happened. And obviously I was a kid when the strikes were all happening, when the Thatcher Tory government was in power, back when I was a kid. And then obviously now we have strikes happening left, right, and centre, for everyone. So set aside your thoughts on strikes and how they affect your ability to access the services that you need, just for 1 minute, while I just give you my thoughts on it. So, not on the strikes actually, just on the whole vote. It's not a vocation; it's a job thing. Don't really want to get into the strikes. So let's just think about this for a second. So the reason I've got a bee in my bonnet about this, and I didn't realise how much of a bee I had in my bonnet about it until I went to an awards evening with my other half, a police awards evening, and one of the I don't know the rank structure in the police, but one of the high Hegians, as we would say in Scotland, so someone who wears a lot of decoration on their epaulets, shall we say, was giving a speech, and it's intended for an audience of police people. Um, and there was a speech given about how it's a vocation, it's not a job, and long hours and no guarantee of getting away and having your rest days cancelled and dealing with difficult things. I think we all get that, but I was left feeling a little bit cold by it, and I was it kind of percolated a little bit over the next few days, and I think it applies to a lot of these kind of public services. So um, anyone in healthcare, all police, teachers, you name it. I'm not going to try and go through an exhaustive list of people that it applies to because I'm inevitably going to leave someone out. But chances are you will recognise that you work in, or you are kind of attached to someone who works in a job like that. This whole business of we thank you for giving that much of yourself, and we thank your families for understanding the sacrifices that you make and stuff. And I was left kind of thinking, this is now, this is a thing, I get it. So we have these jobs where perhaps the amount that you give to that job, you don't get paid a salary that kind of matches up to that, if you know what I mean. So classically, the one that always comes to mind is nursing. And so, I have obviously worked with nurses my entire career, and there is not a chance in hell that nurses get paid even close to what they should be paid. And this is a profession that is quote unquote valued, and we need nurses, but we don't value them in any kind of traditional sense, which is really infuriating. And you can you can make the similar argument about a lot of other professions as well. But I feel like we've now reached a point where this it's a vocation, not a job thing is a bit ridiculous, because actually all we're kind of then saying is that we value you, but we don't value you. We don't value you enough to pay you a reasonable wage. And the same when it comes to the police and stuff as well. So, but it used to be. So this is a remnant from a bit of a bygone era where actually, when you entered these jobs, again, this might be a bit of a myth because obviously I've only been around for the last 10 or 15 years. But if you were in the police, a couple of decades ago, there used to be a lot more benefits to being in the police. You got to serve your time, you got to retire when you still had a bit of lifespan ahead of you, and you could potentially still go on and have another career. You know, same with the kind of benefits of working in the NHS as well. You know, the pension hadn't been quite as affected as it currently is. You know, the kind of facilities that you had access to, the conditions that you were working in were generally much better as well. You know, if we think about what conditions we're expecting people to work in now compared to what they worked in 1 or 2 decades ago, you know, massive, massive difference. So I actually think now that this whole "it's a vocation, not a job" thing is a really, really outdated concept. And I think that, you know, yes, there is an element of, you know, you don't go into things like nursing for the money. I mean, to be honest, this whole, you know, going into medicine for the money thing is a myth as well. You know, I've never had any complaints about the salary that I got, you know, that I get or got paid as a doctor. I always thought I got paid a very fair salary for what I did. In terms of, you know, especially when I was a senior trainee, the amount I got paid in relation to the responsibility I had when I was there running my department overnight, you know, in lieu of the consultant being at home, you know, there's probably a bit of a mismatch there. But other than that, I always thought that my salary was very fair. But I just think that this is a really outdated concept now. That, you know, you knew what you were getting into when you went into it is another way of reframing it. You know, I could take the same speech and rewrite it so that it's essentially the same sentiment. You know, well, you know, you're saying that your job is hard, but you knew what you were signing up for, when, you know, when you applied for the job, when you took the job, when you started the course. And this is the kind of thing that you will see, just to reframe it again, is the kind of the thing you would see if you were foolish enough to venture into some of the, you know, the social media black holes about it, you know, or the, you know, I'm not going to mention specific newspapers, don't want to go there, but you probably know which one I'm thinking. I'm thinking more kind of right wing newspapers. If you go into the comments on certain newspaper articles, you will see all this stuff about, you know, well, that's their job, that's what they signed up for. If you don't like it, um, choose another career. Well, unfortunately for these people, that's exactly what a lot of these people are doing now, is that they are choosing another career. You know, so they're going from areas where they're just being hammered and undervalued to areas where actually they can apply some boundaries in their life, and, you know, they can have time off without feeling guilty. They can, you know, they can you know, get training and opportunities to try and meet whatever, you know, that kind of internal target that they have within themselves, where they want to progress and learn, and they want to do different things, and they can, you know, they can help people under their own terms. I think it's a little bit, you know, it's harder in professions like the police, I think, where you kind of get quite pigeonholed, and maybe even teaching to some degree as well. I think there are other opportunities for teachers, but they're, you know, they're few and far between. It's quite hard to change your career in some of these professions, and it does require a bit more training and a bit more thought. But yeah, people are. You know, what we're seeing now is that people are just not happy, and that, you know, they are voting with their feet and they're looking for alternative careers. So yeah, I think in a nutshell, I just think that this whole "it's a vocation, it's not a job" is really outdated. And I think there is an element of that. You know, you don't go into these jobs unless you've got a kind of strong feeling in yourself that you want to be helping people. But I think there are limits to it as well. So you're less likely to get someone going in, you know, in their late teens, early 20s, and staying until retirement age. You know, so we're demanding, you know, 40 plus years of service in a career where actually, you know, and from my own experience, you just do not feel valued by the organisation that you work for, or for the, you know, for the government that you kind of serve under, to some degree. No matter how many thank yous you get, no matter how much clapping is going on outside front doors, um, ultimately the experience that you have is not of feeling valued, it's of feeling like a chess piece on a board. Um, and I feel like this has descended into me ranting a little bit, but I think it's quite topical in terms of, you know, people don't take industrial action unless you know, unless they don't feel valued, and that's, you know, valued in the kind of spiritual, difficult to measure sense, and also valued in the, you know, actually I have to heat my house and feed my children, and, you know, look after dependents in my life, and, you know, live whatever a meaningful life is for me as well. You know, so you saying, government saying that they just can't afford it, you know, that sends a message of essentially you're prioritizing other things over me, and I don't like that. So yeah, I think this is going on slightly longer than I planned. I think it has turned into a little bit of a mini rant. But yeah, I just wanted to share how I felt about that phrase. You know, it's a vocation, not a job, has become a stick to beat us with rather than an actual kind of tangible, sensible thing to say. So, um, value yourself, consider whether you're currently being valued in the role that you work. If you're not, then I guess, you need to kind of consider your options. Is there a way that you can, feel more valued, or do you need to look for other opportunities that are going to align with you a little bit more? So you need to make that decision. That's a very individual decision. Do you change things from the inside and fight, I guess, or do you, do you have to, do you have to move on, and do you have to find something that, a place that more aligns with where you're at in terms of the need for boundaries and the need to feel valued? I think that's all I've got to say. Let me know um, if any of this makes sense. It may just have been just over 11 minutes of rambling. I don't know. But yeah, let me know what you think about it's a vocation, not a job. Let me know your experience of this. If you are kind of looking at things from the outside and wondering what the heck's going on. If you're someone on the inside of the system somewhere in one of these jobs, where perhaps your sort of monetary salary doesn't quite match up with the level of responsibility that you've got. Let me know what you think. I'd be really curious to hear.